Welcome to Careless Coder. Today in the series Hacking in the Netherlands in the 80s and 90s, we're going to modify a standard radio to listen in on the police radio, which back then was possible. Motherfucker! In 1990 I started my electrical engineering degree. And we had this subject called Telecommunications. And it is all about transmitters, receivers, AM, FM, single sideband, dual sideband, fiber optics, digital transmissions. I love this subject. And not necessarily because of the course matter, but the teacher that we had, Meneer Kruiswijk. He was is a ham radio guy. And he had the ability to really prod you to make the lessons very applicable and interesting. So when we were learning about the LC circuit or the tank circuit, he just dropped off the cuff like standard radios receive from about 87.5 or 88 to 108 megahertz. And we had to do the calculation of a given capacitor and then the inductor, or an inductor and a given capacitor. I don't remember that exactly. And he said like, the police radio actually is on 87 megahertz. And when I was working on this, I was like, 87 megahertz, 87.5, and we learned about coils, and I figured, if I can actually find the coil and compress it, I would shift down the oscillator, because that is what we just been learning. Come to think of it, who in their right mind thought that putting the police radio on 87 megahertz was a clever idea, right next to the standard radio FM? I mean, did nobody think about this? Like, it doesn't make freaking sense to me. What also doesn't make sense to me is I wrote this up and sent it to Hectic, but it was never published. Maybe they didn't want to get in trouble with the police with these sorts of things. I don't know. But they never published it. So when I got home, the first thing I did was find an old radio, prod around, because that was a big one, had a lot of coils. Later on I modified many radios for friends and friends of friends, which only had one or two. So the idea is just put your finger on one. If the frequency shifts, you know, like, that is the one. Compress it, and then you can listen in on the police. So today I will demonstrate how we did that. What you hear currently is a recording that I'm sort of illegally are transmitting on 87 megahertz. 87 megahertz these days is free, and I'm sending with a tiny amount of power in this big, massive concrete building, so no signals come out, but technically it's a bit dodgy. So as soon as we're done, I'm stopping that, because it doesn't feel right to me. So let's jump in and show you what we did to hack this. So for this video I went out on Marktplaats, the Dutch Craigslist so to say, to get a radio that has an analog tuner, and the analog tuner is important. Because without it you cannot do this trick that we used to do. Wow, it's tiny. It's a lot smaller than I expected. I wonder if this works on this one. Yeah, this is not going to work. I need one with a separate... Oh, that is the indicator. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is a completely digital tuner also, although it looks like it is a variable capacitor, it is actually potentiometer. So this is not going to work. I need to find another one. Bugger. Attempt 2. Let's see if this works. This is not very foreboding, because these were already a lot of digital tuners. But it has a dial, so let's hope. And it is doing something. And that for a mere €2. So let's unplug it because I don't want to get jolted. And let's see. You would expect this to clip somehow. There we go. Oh, it was just completely stuck with glue. There we go. Ah, brilliant. So it's probably one of these coils. Usually there's only one. And this one I can compress, the rest I cannot. So it's the best bet that it's this one. So let's try that. And let's not get jolted by the transformer over there. So I put it on a frequency, I squish it. If it changes, we know that's the right one. Now I need to look this what the radio is. Sleep, minutes, hours. Select. Okay. Let's see if we squish this. Or we change the frequency. Yeah, that seems to be the right one.
Mensen zouden vertrokken zijn in een rode auto vanuit de parkeergarage.
So it is a bit soft. But yeah, it worked. It's a bit noisy, but it works. So that is basically how we did that in the past.
Maar nog net dat die was met op en die hield iemand onder de schot. En zijn in de garage geweest.
So there you have it. In about 5 minutes, we modified a radio to listen in on the Dutch police back in the 70s up till about 96, when they went to a digital system. I believe it was called the C1000 or the C2000 system. Now you hear a lot of whining here. And a bit of noise. Now, that whining is because these days there is a radio station somewhere around 88.5 megahertz. And these radio stations have these massive, I think, 50 kilohertz, 25 left, 25 right, frequency modulation. So I pick up some of that stuff, especially since the biggest radio tower is literally a kilometer away here. And it sends with a shitload of power. I always had issues with radio coming in on my radio projects in this area. But yeah, it does work. And it's very audible. Now, soon after I modified it, I got the ham radio bug and I bought a scanner. And a scanner made listening a lot more convenient. Now, this isn't a scanner. It's basically a transceiver, but I can listen in on 87. See, this sounds a lot better, and that's because scanners really expect a small amount of modulation, so they don't pick up wide stations like a standard tuner, so that made it a lot better. Now, I modified a heck of a lot of radios for friends and friends of friends, but never, luckily, a portable thing, because imagine this scenario. It is 1989 or 1990, and you have your Sony Walkman with AM and FM radio. You compress the little coil, put your little headphones on, you put your black hoodie on, your red baseball cap, and you go on your nefarious ways. And then you hear in your little headphones, there is a suspicious character wearing a black hoodie and red baseball cap. Please go and check in. And you go like, black hoodie, red baseball cap. That could be me. Maybe I should leave the scene of the potential crime. So if somebody would have come to me to modify a portable system, although I had 2 or 3 boom boxes, I would have said no. just for that reason. Now, technically those boomboxes could have been abused as well. I never abused the police radio. I think the most illegal thing that I did is right now actually transmitting on 87 megahertz for this demonstration. Now, I'm perfectly fine because this is a massive concrete building. I'm only sending on about 10 milliwatts with a tiny antenna, line of sight here. Nothing is leaking out, and the 87 megahertz these days isn't used. So that is how you did it in 5 minutes. Just find the right coil, and usually there are only 2 or 3. You put your finger on it, you hear it shift, you know that's the one. Compress it, and Bob's your uncle. So I hope you learned something about Dutch hacking in the 80s and 90s, and see you in the next one.